three and whether it's kind of pushing each other. So I thought that was a little bit of a strange one. And I'm a big fan of Marcus Smith. I think it's time for him to be tested against the best, rather than just America or Canada or Tonga or someone like that. It's time for him to challenge and be challenged by the best teams in the world. And I think for me, he's answered all the questions which have been asked of him. He's done his time. He's been patient. And I think at the age of 22, is he better than where a lot of players were in that kind of international berth? Very possibly. And speaking to him about kind of his experience with the Lions, he's like, look, for the last, whatever it was, 5 weeks, he got to train with the best in the business. Finn Russell, Bigger, Farrell, and learn from him. And he's a sponge. He wants information. He wants to be better. He's always pushing himself. And from what, I mean, he's only played one game so far this year, but he looks like he's hit the ground running again.
You've obviously seen him up close for years. From your perspective, is this just, you're not surprised remotely of where he is now, and where do you think he's going to go on to?
No, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, this is a kid who was, or got a man now, who was training with England when he was doing his A-levels at Brighton College. It's not been a flash in the pan. I remember we were like, who's this guy? I knew he was in the Queen's Academy, but I didn't really know too much about him. Came to train in between his exams, and I think it was one of the second rounds. Can't remember who it was. Got up and smashed him, and it was probably a bit uncalled for. He got up, shrugged his shoulders. Next time he got the ball, picked the ball up, ran around that second row. But yeah, I mean, look, he's a guy who's got a huge. Things with him is exciting. He's not the biggest lad. He makes his tackles. He's a brave kid. And like I said, he's not afraid to try things. And I think and at the age of 22, I don't know how many games he would have played already, but he's been playing straight out of school. He must play 95% of the games straight out of school. So look, he's had some good times, some tough times where he's had to learn, and he's had to reflect, and he's had to be patient, waiting for his opportunity. And you look at Ford and Farrell, these guys, I think were playing for England when they were about 19, maybe. I don't know about Finn Russell's type of age. So he's a little bit older and probably than that. But I think you put him with the experience of a Ben Youngs in front of him and a Farrell next to him, and he's got that confidence and he's got that kind of that maturity around him as well, I think.
I worry that put him with Farrell though, and Farrell almost dominates him. No, don't do that. No, you're not allowed to do that. Is he that type of guy, Farrell, to be like, because I've heard what he's like on the training field, but in a game, is he going to go, mate, do what you need to do? Or is he going to go, no, give us ball, I'm going to kick?
No. Look,
terrible accent.
Look, for me, Farrell is probably the best player I've ever played with in terms of what he delivers and what he can do and his mentality, the mental side of him, and how driven he is. But I think with that, I think you have to respect the players around you, and the 10 generally runs the show, doesn't it, in attack? And I think for anything, you've got to trust that. And I think a lot will depend on how Eddie and England want to play the game. Are they going to say, okay, you've got a faith, we're going to go for it? Or are we going to be like a lot of international rugby is at the moment, a bit more pragmatic? Are we going to play not very much in our half? Because for England, you look back to the Six Nations, the autumn before that, there's opportunities out there, but they haven't quite taken it. Because again, are they a bit contained in themselves? So I think now, I mean, like I said, to leave a lot of international or experienced players out, Radwan, the Newcastle winger, I think it is. I mean, I hope he gets a run because seeing what he can do as well. And I think, look, I don't think there's going to be massive changes, but I think there'll be a couple scattered around. And it was great to see that freshness coming. I think Don Grant will play at 8. Simmons on the bench. I think a back row of Underhill, Don Grant and Curry will be pretty formidable. And Simmons kind of coming on. But yeah, I think there's a huge amount of excitement there.
So Luke Cowan-Dickey's now out. They're pulling Jamie George in. Jamie George obviously wasn't ahead of Nick Dolly. Is Nick Dolly going to start? Because he's been outstanding for Leicester. You were talking about him a couple of weeks ago, Max, saying he's come out of nowhere. He's absolutely tearing it up. I mean, who else is in there? Is it
Jamie Bamber from Newcastle? But I'd expect they put Jamie George in there just experience-wise.
So you think they'll go straight in? I reckon get Nick Dolly in. Let him start. Chuck Jamie George on the bench if they're going for it. They got Tonga first up. They'll be all right.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah, like with Tonga, are they going to try a couple more guys? And they probably would potentially, I think. But then also you need to get in a bit of rhythm, don't you, for when the big boys come in the week after.
Yeah.
But I think he'll be elevated to start straight away, unless Nick Dolly, unless he makes a huge impact in that first kind of training camp. I think Jamie will be in there.
Because then again at 9, you've got a lot of contrast there. You look at you speak of Ben Youngs, but then they've got that Rafi Quirk coming in. Like he's a completely different player to Ben Youngs. So you have someone like that on the bench. Spoke about it a lot with the Lions stuff. Having that different style of play, so you can bring players on to open up a game. It'll be interesting to see what they do there and what they try against Tonga.
With Chris, you've seen at first hand Eddie Jones being ruthless with Cullings before. The fact that Jamie George is now being pulled back in, like how much is mind games and how much is it him actually perhaps even putting an end to people's international careers?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I've been cold by him. It's never a nice thing to be, unfortunately. And I honestly thought with a lot of them, it was going to be a kick up the arse until probably this announcement and then bringing a lot of them back in. And when we've seen, look, he wants to, and look, this is the time to try things. The autumn campaign, they've got 2 years. There's probably not as much pressure as there is on the Six Nations campaign where more rivalry, all that kind of stuff. And look, it's a strange one because if Eddie doesn't pick them, he gets moaned at for not picking them. If he drops senior guys for them, he gets moaned at for dropping senior guys.
True.
So as a coach, you can't win. But I think whatever it is, and as a coach, as a captain, you have to be confident because when a decision's made, if it doesn't work, it's on you. And no matter what players are in and out and all that kind of stuff. So you go back to what you know and what you can trust. But I think he's been brave, and I think he'll be brave in this campaign to try things. And look, Eddie's the same man. If he thinks someone's good enough to play international rugby, they will. And he'll test guys, more the younger guys. He'll probably test them, see what they're about. And I know Max knows Carl Sinclair quite well, where he was tested quite a lot early on by Eddie. And you come through and look at the player he's now, and he wants guys to be ready for international rugby, but not just be ready, but to excel at international rugby and be there for years. So no, I'm excited by this autumn campaign and the squad he's picked.
How does he test exactly?
I mean, everyone's a little bit different. You look at someone like Johnny May, and Johnny May, who is now in England's leadership group and one of the key leaders in the England squad. But when Eddie kind of first came on, he would test him and basically see where he's at mentally. I think because the mental side of the game is so big now. But for me, his man management is brilliant. He treats everyone differently. Like someone like myself, he would always just be quite honest. If I play badly, he'll tell me I'll be bad. If I needed to work on something, he'll tell me. There's other guys, like a James Haskell, who life and soul of the party, likes to give a bit of stick. He would just banter with them all day, take the mick out of each other, and that's what we get the best out of that. Other players who give responsibility to encourage them to come out of their shells and really kind of embrace the game. So there's not one hard and fast rule for everyone. He treats everyone differently, which I think is great.
A lot of speculation about England's strongest back row. How do you see it?
I think it's at what we said, Curry, Underhill, and Donbrant at the moment. Simmons coming off the bench. I think if Jack Willis is back, all of a sudden it's different. I don't know who you're dropping out of that lot, to be honest.
Are you putting Courtney Laws in the row then? Yeah.
So my pack would be Marla. It would have been Karen Dickey, but now I'll go Jamie George and Sink. Courtney, Mauro. Underhill, Curry, and Donbrant. Who would go nine? And then I'd probably go Youngs, Marcus, Farrell, Manu, Anthony Watson, Radwan, and Max Malins. I like him. Like Max Malin looks a good player, I think. He just looks. He's one of those players that look similar to Alex Food kind of thing. He just looks like he's got time. He's skillful. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Real elegant player, I think. For me, Tom is brilliant. Tom is such a good player. I was in there when he first came into camp when we went to Argentina and seeing him and his brother for the first time. Tough guy, and he's matured. He's a guy he's a great character and he's a guy you want to have in the squad because he's good fun off the field. But as a player, he's gone up against the world's best now and handled himself. And I think that's the thing. I remember in one of our first camps that it was actually a camp he broke his arm, I think, and we were mauling and things led over. And I think one of the guys, I think it was Marla, went at him and he didn't back down. And I just thought, you know what, this guy, he's tough. And that's what you want from your back row, someone who's going to stand up no matter who you are, whether if you're an experienced player or what. And I'm glad someone like that is starting to find his voice. He's showing leadership. If he thinks stuff wasn't good enough, fair enough, he's come out his head. And I think that's an important thing. We want, not only do we want good players, we want strong leaders in England. We want people who are good team men and good characters to have around, because he's definitely a good character to have in amongst the squad. But in terms of what happened on the Lions, I don't know. It probably wasn't the most exciting series to watch, as we could probably all judge to, but that comes from both sides, doesn't it?
Can I just say, I've sat here and watched Chris do a whole podcast for an hour and 10 minutes with a baby. Mate, I'm in the shit next week, because if my missus finds out and she reckons I can do this with the kids, I don't know how you've done it, mate. The wingman's been brilliant. If my missus finds out that you did this with a baby, she's going to be right. You can look after the kids now during this. This is my 2 hours off, mate.
Yeah, you've got to time it, mate. You've got to time it. We're learning.
Bloody hell. I'm going to be right up the shit.
I've got scratch marks outside the door from mine. I can just hear them. But let's quickly go through. I mean, unless they are vastly different. But Max, can we get your starting 15 for your England starting 15?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I think Ellis and Marla are sort of interchangeable, but you don't lose much. And then I kind of I'd love to get Mark Atkinson in there. That'd be funky, but it's hard to.
What? Yeah, shout out to him. What is he? 31?
Yeah, he's a late bloomer, but he's always been classy. Just gone under the radar. But he'd be cool. But it's hard you can't really drop Farrell, and Manu's Manu. It's tough. But yeah, I'm pretty much the same as Chris. Same team. Yeah.
Isn't that weird though? You mentioned Mark Atkinson, and Lewis Rees-Zammit talked about him as who he thought is the most underrated player out there. Isn't it kind of crazy that there's so much rugby and we watch so much rugby, and yet somebody can fly so much under the radar and then bloom in their early 30s?
I think it says more about sort of the guys that England have had. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to get around who's been there. They've just been such integral parts of the team. Like, if Manu's fit, he has to be in there. You can't overstate how good he's been for England. He's a complete freak show. And then Owen Farrell's sort of synonymous with the Rose. Like, he's the face of English rugby in so many ways. And then if you're trying to get guys in around him like George Ford, who's been serving at 10 admirably, you have to have them on the field. So, but Mark Atkinson is such a different kind of player, because he's sort of a big man with like really deft skills, and that's what makes him quite special, because he can smash it up on the gain line. And then he's got these wonderful deft touches. He just does naughty things with the ball in hand.
I love players like that. There's always players like that at a club that, you know, like not many of the fans really see what they're worth, but it's the boys in the club know, oh, right, as long as he's on the field this week, we'll be all good. And there's that player that goes under the radar, does his work, does his graft on and off the field, that, yeah, the outside world don't look in as much and go, oh, yeah, he's an unbelievable player. But you need those guys in a rugby team. And that's the feeling you get from him. He's one of those clubmen that you're like, yeah, he's finally deserves a shot now. So it'd be cool to get someone like that in there, eh? But as you said, I don't see him getting in with Manu. Is Manu going to get through without getting injured?
That's the big one, isn't it? That is the big question. But I
think it also gives every player hope, though, doesn't it? Like, you don't always have to be.
It's not over yet, lads. So I'm still in.
Yeah. No, but like, you don't have to be there at 22 or 23 to play for your country. Like, everyone develops at different stages, or even those players who don't get rugby clubs or academy contracts straight away. Some go to university and kind of come through and excel and all that kind of stuff. We all have a different path, don't we? It's just hoping someone likes what you can offer.
Right, quickly, let's get yours. I need your 15 as well, please.
Who cares about mine? I don't care if England lose, do I?
Mate, I'm being told to do it. Come on.
No. Okay, I'm going exactly the same as the boys. I've pretty much had the same. But guess what? I didn't put Farrell in there.
Yeah.
just to annoy him. He's never going to find out, but
I'm sure he'll listen.
Yeah. I didn't have him in there. But do you know why it is? It's more to the point of what I said. I've had Marcus Smith in there, and I'd want Marcus Smith to be able to do what he'd want to do. And I just feel like he would feel maybe, Farrell would be overbearing on him and be like, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Quick predictions from you, Chris, for the for England's autumn internationals.
3-0.
Solid. Max?
2-1.
Where's the loss?
Tonga.
I'm going to go with Australia.
Ryan?
Yeah, I think they'll lose to Australia. I think they'll beat Tonga, lose to Australia, and scrape it through against South Africa.